It's good when God gets ahead of you like that. I mean, I don't have a problem with it whatsoever. But it was the same thing. So if you want to open up, I'm going to open up a little bit earlier than that, but we are going to go to Isaiah chapter 9. And as she was speaking and speaking about what God had put in her heart, it also showed me how the Spirit of the Lord works within the same scripture differently in different people. Because what she picked up on it, I said, you know what, that's pretty good. I didn't see that. But it's just the way that the Spirit of the Lord works, And so I guess we're going to go to my interpretation here in a minute. But nonetheless, it's refreshing to me to see that, it's kind of what I call one mind, one accord. We're becoming of one mind and one accord in the church. You'll hear me talk about loving each other a lot, forgiving one another, esteeming others more than you should yourself. You'll hear me talk about this a lot. And I'm hoping that in this new year to come, it will be just talk, it will be action. Because we talk a lot of talk, but we don't back it up with a lot of action. And I'm thinking, it's time. I think the Lord is thinking, guys, it's time. You who are growing, and some of you who are grown in the faith, it is time. It is time to do what they did. It is time to stop whatever it is that you think you're doing that is so important and do what God wants you to do. It is time. It's time to quit thinking about all of your stuff and start thinking about your Father's stuff. Let's remember, without Him, where will we be? What kind of a life will we have? Well, I've not been blessed all my life. Well, you're blessed now, aren't you? You could have continued being unblessed and miserable and downtrodden, cast down and oppressed and all that for the rest of your life. I came to pray last night, and anybody that has been around me lately know that my knees have been giving me tremendous trouble. I twisted one, and one is shot. So, as I came to pray last night, sometimes I sit there, but I just felt like knees or no knees, I'm getting on my knees. And then when we sung that song that we sung, fall on your knees, it reminded me how God instructed me to get on your knees. And I prayed for a long time. Yeah, I was a little sore getting up, but it was worth it. It was worth it. We need to be more obedient and more attentive to what God whispers in our ears than just to be all about ourselves. I want to feel good. Well, we all want to feel good. I don't want to be depressed. None of us want to be depressed. Let's get over ourselves. Let's focus on Christ. And this message in Isaiah, and I didn't give Bird that scripture, but I told you for about 2 weeks now, maybe 3, that when we read the scriptures, we need to read them carefully. Because what happens if you just read for the sake of reading, I mean, I can lay there on my bed at night and I can pick up the Bible and I can just go through chapters and chapters and chapters. But what good is that doing me if I don't stop to think about what the chapters are saying? What are the scriptures saying? The reason that he wrote this is to change our lives. Not so you can do a quick read or a good read or a long read. It's so you can change into the image of his Son. Are we going to be crucified? I hope so. Not physically, but spiritually you're supposed to have been crucified already. If you've been saved, you've been born again, you're supposed to be crucified. No. It was right. It's not about Baptist, non-denominational, Methodist, Catholic, Presbyterian, whatever. It's not about that. It's about Jesus. It's about God. It's about the one that came to save our souls. He didn't come in to be popular, though he became the most popular man ever walked on earth. But he didn't come for that reason. He didn't come to have great wealth. He left his wealth in heaven. He came in the form of a servant. Think about that. Now we got, when a baby's delivered now, we have these hospitals with the latest and the greatest, and everything is just super wonderful. And if the mother has any kind of complications, there is ready nurses and doctors ready to jump on the scene. I almost lost a granddaughter at her birth. And there was a room full of doctors there immediately. And they took my little granddaughter and they rushed her off. And you've seen her here. Her name is Harper. But she was in a dicey condition for about 3 weeks, 2 or 3 weeks, wasn't it, babe? But it's okay. Now she's a beautiful, no problem, you know. But we have all these things. Back in the day when Jesus, there was no such thing. That's the reason that, you know, when you hear me say, you know, just at the right time. Know the conveniences of modern life that we have now. He came at the right time. Where suffering was suffering. Where need was need. We don't, you know, in this country, we don't understand need. We think we don't understand need in this country. People, we do not understand what need is in this country. Because we have things set up in this country to where nobody's going to go hungry unless they just want to. Nobody's going to go without shelter unless they just want to. Because we have shelters out there for the homeless. So nobody's going to do without unless they want to. But there's other countries in this world, even today, that there is need, tremendous need. So we need to think outside of ourselves a little bit and think more about what God is doing. But in the preceding chapter, before chapter 9 gets going, because to me, when I read the word, and I started in Isaiah 9 yesterday, I went like, why did he say this right here? So you start in Isaiah 9, verse 1. Go ahead, Bert, put it on there. Nevertheless, I mean, that's a heck of a way to start a chapter. Nevertheless what? If you just grab the book and open it up right there and you go, nevertheless. So that means you need to go back. You need to go back. You need to go to the preceding chapter and say, why is he starting out with nevertheless? That's reading the scriptures carefully. That's not just saying, well, nevertheless. No. There's a reason for the word nevertheless to begin the chapter. So you need to go to the preceding chapter. And I'm going to read it for you so you don't have to go there. And I'm going to start chapter 8, but I'm going to start in verse, I guess it's 19. But should people, well, someone may say to you, let's ask the mediums or those who consult the spirits of the dead. With their whisperings and mutterings, they will tell us what to do. This is, they're talking about, Isaiah's talking about people who are going from place to place seeking answers. I don't like what they're saying in that church, so I'm going to go to this other church. That's really that's what he's talking about right here, guys. And I hope Jesse doesn't take this wrong. But you went to see a prophet, or you go see a prophet. Why? Because you want, you're seeking an answer. Here's your answer. Here's your answer. Am I against prophets? Of course not. God has given me many words to share with people that I believe they're prophetic. I don't go chasing prophets. Let me tell you something about prophets. When they came into town, read the Old Testament, they all ran. They didn't come out to tell you all these pretty things that you want to hear nowadays. Because the prophets of today, the prophets that tell you nothing but good things, you know what they were calling the Old Testament? The prophets of Baal. False prophets. I'm going to tell you what you want to hear. And in return, I expect a little change for me. Those were the prophets of Baal. But I can take you to a king that he says, is there any prophet of the Lord in the land? And Ahab said, yeah, there's one, but he never prophesies anything good. That was a prophet of the Lord. The other guys were not a prophet of the Lord. That's really what he was saying. And the king of Judah said, well, we still need, don't talk like that. We still need to hear from the prophet of the Lord. All right, go ahead and send for the prophet of the Lord. So he goes, and this is the warning that he gives the prophet. The messengers to go get the prophet, tell the prophet, hey, look, everybody's already prophesied. And the battle is going to be won, and everything is going to be good. So you need to do the same thing. Tell the prophet God what to do. He said, sure, why not? And he told the king exactly, well, yeah, everything, yeah, you're going to have victory and all that. And the king says, I know better than that. See, he knew the word. He knew the word of the prophet. He knew that prophet was true. And when he told, I know better than that, he said, yeah, you should, because you will not come back alive. Whoa. Imprison him. See, when a prophet came into town, but this is what people were doing back in the days of Isaiah. They were going from here to there and yonder and this other place, trying to make their life a little bit more comfortable while they were sinning. God have none of it. Okay, so after that he goes, but shouldn't people, this is Isaiah speaking, shouldn't people ask God for guidance instead of prophets, instead of preachers, instead of evangelists, instead of teachers? Shouldn't you be asking God instead of your neighbor? You might as well ask your neighbor. Should the living seek guidance from the dead? See, we have gotten to a position now in this country, especially in this country, because I can see it, is that whatever the government says, it's okay. And it doesn't matter who's in power. We got one in power right now that says one thing, and we soon to have another one in power is going to say another thing. Who cares what they say? I don't care. This is what I care about. 100%. Is it going to make life easier and all that other stuff? Do you really want your life to be easy and fall away from God, or do you rather have your life a little bit harder, but know that you're following God? You need to make up your minds. God's not going to push you one way or the other. These commercials that we see on TV, everybody tearing each other up, you don't know what's a lie, you don't know what's truth anymore. Right or wrong? You don't know. They're hoping to convince you. One way or the other, they're hoping to convince you. You know, Paul never said convince. He said, I am persuaded. There's a big difference. You might convince me of something today, but somebody else can come in tomorrow and convince me of something otherwise. But when you are persuaded in your heart, in your very soul, in your being, that you know, hey, I got to walk with God regardless of who's up there, regardless of all this thing that is going on. Were you persuaded like Paul was? Man, you're walking. And you don't care what's coming up in front of you, because you're going to continue to walk. Those prophets of old, they did not care. The real prophets of God, they didn't care. The other ones were running. But the prophets of God, they did not care. If it cost them their lives, and a lot of them did. This guy, he lost his life. He didn't care. He was not going to lie to people just because, if I tell them the truth, they're going to cut me in half. He didn't do that. He went on and told them the truth and paid for it. But shouldn't people ask God for guidance? Should the living seek guidance from the dead? Are we not all dying? Are we not? I mean, this is what it's talking about here. You still asking questions from temporal man. My goodness. Dr. Fauci, Dr. Burke, and this other doctor, and the other doctor. And we're still in the same situation that we've been since March. Nobody knows what's going on. Thank God there's less people dying. But we had a lady that she's been here a couple of times. She passed away this last week with COVID. Little old lady. She comes from Roswell or Marietta. And she went to the big baptism that we had a couple of years ago or last year, and and all that. And she's in her 80s. And she caught it in, I think Greg said, Thanksgiving. She's like 85, 87, something like that, and it got her. She went to be with the Lord. She was a little fireball. She dressed sharp, she talked sharp, and she was sharp. But she went to be with the Lord. Like Greg said, she graduated. That's the way he looked at it. She graduated. She went to be with the Lord. I mean, this woman, I tell you what about this woman. This woman, and you all heard me say this, her name was Sue. This little woman, when Charles Stanley was beginning his church, the Lord, this is a long time ago, long time ago. The Lord spoke to her and said, sell all the silverware that you have from your wedding gifts and give it to the church. And that's exactly what she did. She sold everything she had and gave it to the church. No problem. She supported and supported and supported. She came here. She gave here. She didn't need to. She wasn't, you know. But see, that's a true woman of God. Her husband likewise. Now I want you to pray for Hoyt. They were married 57 years. Let me tell you, it's almost like somebody just cut your arms and your legs off. All of a sudden, you know, I'm married to Rosemary for 43 years. I don't know what I do. I don't know what Hoyt. They don't have no children either. They never had no children. So you talk about he's going to feel the loneliness, especially this time of year. So, anyhow, so this is the reason he said, who are you looking for guidance? And then verse 20 says, look to God's instructions and teaching. Look to God's instructions. Look to God's instructions and teaching. Listen to how he follows it. People who contradict his word are completely in the dark. Hello. So if anybody comes to you, I don't care if they're president, vice president, president to be, vice president to be, I don't care who they are, doctors, nurses, whoever they are. If they contradict this word right here, the word says and proclaims they are completely in the dark. Oh, you're pretty bold. Yes, I am. I got Bible to back it up. So when I got this to back it up, I can be pretty bold to anybody. What about science? If it doesn't line up with this right here, it's wrong. It's in the dark. Still in the dark. If science is doing so well, why are we still losing people to this thing? Do you know that when the plagues came to Egypt, God stopped it like that? He can stop this, what's going on right now, just like that. That's the reason I trust him more than I trust the doctors. Who's been keeping me? God. I can tell you, boldly I can tell you, God's been keeping. I've been around a lot of people. A lot of people. I'm in somebody's house every day just about. I have no idea whether they have this, and I don't care. Because no plague can come nigh me. So I walk freely without concern. I don't know what these people got or what they don't have. I don't know how they've been in touch with. I don't know. Hey, just because you tested negative today, that doesn't mean that 2 hours ago you weren't touched by somebody who tested positive. They didn't know. So this is where we're at. So what are we going to do with this thing that we call faith? Are we going to put it into action? Like in the book of James says? Or are we going to just retreat for it because we're afraid we're going to die? If you're afraid you're going to die, let me tell you, there's something wrong with your salvation. Oh, boy. Oh, boy, you have to go there, AC. Yes, I have to because I'm the pastor. I'm not afraid of dying. God might call me in the middle of the night. He might call me today. I'm not afraid of it. I know where I'm going. You know what? I call it a graduation as well. I'll be in the presence of the Most High God. Who all can say that here on this earth? See, we're walking in His presence all day long. He covers me under the shadow of his wings. I'm going to tell you again. Whenever your mind comes and tries to put you in doubt, go back to the Word, read Psalm 91. It's not a great long psalm anyway, so it's not like 118, okay? So it's not like I'm going to tell you to read 118 every day. But you can read Psalm 91 every day. And if you, I know a lot of you guys won't, but some might. If you did it every day, by the middle of this year, you'll know it by heart. And you know what happens when you know something by heart? Nothing can change it. 2 times 2 is 4. Can anybody change that? We know that by heart, don't we? If we read Psalm 91 every day, by the middle of the year, you'll know that scripture like you know your birthday, your social security number, and all these other things. You would know it. And then when the enemy comes to tempt you to unbelief, it'll be a non-issue. See, I hide myself. That's what hiding is. I hide myself under his wing. When my enemy comes in my mind, and the enemy is not going to be somebody out there. He doesn't drive a car. He doesn't work at a store. He doesn't work at the hospital. The enemy is right here. The liar comes to tempt you here. He might come in the form of a person from time to time, but that person is not the enemy. The enemy is what's going through your mind. And you can make a decision real quick whether you want to obey it or disobey it. My decision is I'm not going to even listen to it. I have no desire to hear his voice. Jesus didn't either. Jesus finally got to a point and said, look, man, get behind me. Get out of here. Enough of your talk. Enough of your chatter. You can do nothing to me anyways. See, Jesus knew he could do nothing to him. But yeah, here we are. We're afraid that he's going to do something to us. Come on, people. Is Christ living in you or not? He can do nothing to me. And by the power of the Word of God, he can do nothing to you either. We are hid in Christ. See, that's it. That's the shadow. Your lives have been hid in Christ. So your life is not out there exposed to the enemy anymore, unless you let it. Unless you want to come out from the covering a little bit, so I can enjoy life a little bit. Be careful. That might be the time where you get caught. But see, your lives have been hid with Christ in God. How can the enemy touch you if your life has truly been hid with Christ in God? That's where I live, guys. So you know where my pastor lived? That's where I live. I remind myself, do I make mistakes? Of course, I made lots of them. Don't follow me. If you follow me around, you're going to say, oh, there he goes. Don't follow me around to see if I make mistakes. Follow the Word. Follow the Word. It doesn't make mistakes. Okay. People who contradict his word are completely in the dark. They will go from one place to another. Here we go. This is what I was talking about, church. Weary and hungry, and because they are hungry, they will rage and curse their king and their God. When things don't go right, what do? Why did God allow this to happen? Really? Maybe you allowed it to happen. Maybe you came out from under the covering of God and you allowed this to happen. See, a lot of people don't like to hear this kind of teaching because they put too much responsibilities on their actions. I'm here to tell you, God doesn't care, and I don't care. I'm going to give it to you straight. You do with it what you will. If you want to change it, you change it. God doesn't care how you change things. He's just only going to accept his word. He's not going to accept what you change. The changes don't change him. Okay? They curse their king and their God. They will look up to heaven and down at earth, but wherever they look, they will be in trouble and anguish and dark despair. They will be thrown into the darkness. They will be thrown into the darkness. In other words, God says, that's where you want to go? Go. All right. And then we go to verse 1. Nevertheless. See, there's a hope. This is the caution. This was the word of caution right there in chapter 8. And then he goes, nevertheless. And it does say hope of the Messiah. My God, thank you, Father. Nevertheless, the time of darkness and despair will not go on forever. As soon as you turn back to the Lord, as soon as you turn back to the Lord, it'll stop. It will not go on forever. The land of Zebulun and Naphtali will be humbled. Oh, we don't like that word either, Anna. We don't like the humble part. Listen, before you start, I don't know if I want to humble myself to, I'm a man, I don't want to humble myself to a woman. I'm a woman, I don't want to humble myself to a man. I'm a child, I don't want to be humble myself to my parents or my boss or this or that or the other. Let me tell you, God gives grace to the humble. And he resists the proud. What? He resists the proud and gives grace to the humble. So if you got some pride going on in your life, and that's mostly what gets us all the time, you best shed of it. It's not really helping your spiritual walk. And the Lord knows it will not go on forever. The land of Zebulun and Naphtali will be humbled, but there will be a time in the future when Galilee of the Gentiles, that's us guys, which lies along the road that runs between the Jordan and the sea, will be filled with glory. Oh my heavens. Oh my heavens. Verse 2 says, the people who walk, this was us, who walk in darkness will see a great light. See, and we thinking, okay, he's talking about the manger and the star on top of the manger and all this. No. He's not talking about that. He's talking about the people who were walking in darkness will certainly see a great light. All of a sudden you see, wait a minute, this was all bad, and I need to turn or I will perish. That's the light. He is that light. You cannot come to the light unless, you know what? Unless you are invited. Does God invite everybody? Yeah, he invites them. He bid them all to come. He said, it's a wedding feast. Bid them all. Go by the highways and byways and the hedges. You're going to be surprised at some of the people. When heaven is open to all of us, we're going to be surprised and shocked at some of the people that we're going to see there. Because God made that invitation, and unknowingly to us, that person is there. We thought, oh man, that person was not. And you're wrong. Don't assume anything. Do not assume anything. The people who walk in darkness will see a great light. For those who live in the land of deep darkness, even if you're in deep darkness, a light will shine. Deep darkness. You know, the guy who murdered 20 children, he's in deep darkness. People, he can repent. He can humble himself before God. He can turn his heart to God. And God, because he's a just God, will grant him salvation. Oh, the child molester. Oh, I'm sorry. I'm sorry if you disagree with God. I'm sorry. He said, I would that none would perish. None, zero. I came to save. Listen, I've been reading in Matthew all this week. Jesus told the Pharisees, I didn't come to heal the well. I came for the sick, for the ones that need me. You Pharisees think you got it all together. We got churches full of people like that. And institutions full of people like that. Jesus, I came to the ones that nobody cares about. The forgotten, the downtrodden, the beat up. I came to them to save their soul, to give them a brand new life. A life that the world cannot understand. And that's what God's done for me, people. I look at my life and I go, how is it possible that a guy like me wound up like this right here? I look at my life like that. I have no education. I have no education. I barely made it through high school. Barely made it through high school. So, how did I wind up where I'm at? Did I work? Yeah, I worked, but it wasn't. There's a lot of guys still working at my age don't have what I got, not been able to bless like I've been blessed. I tell you, I have no answers except one. The cross. The cross. I was very blessed, and I wish I would have done it earlier. Things would have been a lot better. I was very blessed that I was on my early to mid-20s that I gave my life to the Lord. Did I fumble? I still do. Yeah, I fumbled. I made a lot of mistakes. I did a lot of things that I should have done. But see, God perseveres. He remains faithful even when we're not faithful. See, He knows the end from the beginning. He knows when you're going to turn back. See, the Father knew that the prodigal son was coming back. Why was he walking out there when the other one was over there having a feast? Why was he out there? He was looking because our Father always knows. Our Father knows. Well, we're going to turn back to Him. Don't fret over your children. Don't fret over your spouses. Don't fret over that stuff. God knows the right time. Your worrying will not bring Him back any quicker. Tell that handsome son of yours, happy birthday on my behalf. And he is handsome. Yeah, exactly. He has a sweet, sweet spirit in Christ. You can see it when he smiles at you. You can see it. DeMarco's special. Listen, you, God, will enlarge the nation of Israel. This is His people. And His people will rejoice. They will rejoice before you, Lord. As people rejoice at the harvest, like warriors dividing the plunder. See, this is us. But we're not rejoicing. We don't have enough. See, the world never has enough. Warren Buffett doesn't have enough money. That's the reason he's trying to get more. Bill Gates doesn't have enough money. Apple doesn't have enough money. They need more. Microsoft, likewise. They all need more. It's a bottomless pit. They're never satisfied. They look at people like us, they just laugh. These pitiful people, what are they rejoicing about? Because we have something that you can't buy. All the money in the world cannot buy what we got. Hallelujah. That's the reason you see me sometimes I walk proud. I keep my head up. I keep my shoulders back. Why? Because I know what I got. What I got cannot be bought. It cannot be sold. It cannot be stolen. We should all be shouting like that. Listen to Jesus. For you will break the yoke of their slavery. Lift up the heavy burden from their shoulders. If you want to know where that's in Matthew. Chapter 11, I think 28 through 30, something like that. Lift up the heavy burdens from their shoulders. You will break the oppressor's rod, just as you did when you destroyed the army of Midian. They were evil people. And he's saying, just like that. Is drugs not evil? Alcoholism? Old habits, are they not evil? God says He will destroy them. That's what He's talking about here now, people. He might have been talking in the physical then because Midian was a great army. But now He's talking about in the spiritual. I will break it. You will break the oppressor's rod. That's an oppressing rod. It will not let you go. When you think you're coming out of it, a buddy will come by or a friend will come by and tempt you to fall into it again. That just one time ain't going to hurt. Yes, it will. For one thing, you're becoming disobedient. Even if it did not affect you physically, you become disobedient. And immediately you're breaking off from God. Remember, He is light, in Him there is no darkness at all. So if you choose to go back to darkness, you made this decision on your own, and you must carry your consequence. Nobody else can carry it for you. So that's what he's talking about. The oppressing rod is just what all the habits that we had previously in our life. You know, it can be lust. It can be anything. But he said that you will break the oppressor's rod. Break it. In other words, he can't use it anymore. It's broken. The boots of the warriors and the uniform blood-stained by war will be burnt. No longer on you. No longer on you. That's what he's talking about. All these things that kept you oppressed are no longer going to be on you. They will be fuel for the fire. What fire? What is God? A consuming fire. They will be fuel for the fire. He'll consume everything. You no longer have to worry about those old things that crept up on you all the time and kept you under bondage. If you're still under bondage to this day, it's because you're choosing to be under bondage. Hey, see, that is so hard, but I can't help it. Turn to God, ask for help from God, and He will help you. I used to smoke 2 packs a day. I don't smoke anymore. I haven't smoked in... Rachel never saw me smoke. So I haven't smoked in 30, almost 40 years. But I used to smoke 2 packs a day. Bondage. I used to drink with my friends. Bondage. I used to deer hunt every weekend. Bondage. Hello. Some of us guys don't like that. Ooh, you're going a little deep there. Well, it is what it is. I was in bondage. I love to go out there in the woods and hunt more than I love to be at church with God. And if you take this the wrong way, too bad for you. I'm sorry. I'm just telling you my experience. I don't mean to put anybody in a... I'm not here to condemn anybody. Believe me. I got plenty on my plate. So he wants to get rid of your bondage. And once that stuff is burned up by God, you no longer be in bondage. And this is why. This is why it will no longer be there. For a child is born to us. He came. Because he came, we no longer have to be in bondage. See? A child is born to us. A son is given to us. The government will rest on his shoulders. And I know what she was talking about when she said that the government... Listen, the government he's talking about right here, it's talking about, it's not the U.S. government. It's not any government. It's the government here. What governs your life? This is what he's talking about right here. His government is perfect and it's peace and it's forever. He goes on to say this right here. His government, the government will rest on his shoulders. And it will be called, and he will be called, Wonderful. See, once you understand that it's not up to you anymore, I can rest in him, all of a sudden, this thing comes alive on you. All of a sudden, you realize he is wonderful. He's a great counselor. He's a mighty God. He's the everlasting Father. He is the Prince of Peace. See, all of a sudden, these names make sense to you when you fall and you realize, when you fall on your knees and you realize, it's all in your hands now, Father. I have put my life in your hands. All of a sudden, these names, because if not, we just reading scriptures. Oh, it sounds so pretty, the baby on the manger. Oh, it's not there. Okay. It's back there. Okay. So we look to these things, you know, and we go like, oh, it's so peaceful, it's so pretty, and all that. That is not even scriptural. We go, society has just created such a muck out of the birth of Christ, we give gifts to each other at Christmas. Why? Oh, because the 3 wise men came and gave him gifts. Okay, so number one, they didn't do it at Christmas. He was already big. Or not big, but he was already he wasn't a baby in a manger. Number one. Number two, you're not the Christ, so why are we giving each other gifts? What's going on with that? I mean, I'm okay with people giving gifts. Anna gave me a nice coffee pot this morning, which I needed for Cuban coffee. So you know, I mean, I'm okay with it, but don't disguise it under something that is not real. And I'm not going to go, because there's children in here, and I'm not going to go into the guy with the white beard. I'm not going to touch that. But I never allowed my daughters to go for it. Oh, AC. Well, I didn't. And I don't think it hurt him a bit. I didn't allow him to do a lot of things. I was very strict, so somewhat too hard on my girls. But there was a lot of worldly, because to me it's worldly, dates that we celebrate that I'm going like, I mean, I know Thanksgiving, we give thanks to God. We give thanks to God in this country. I know that. Not a problem. I like to eat as much as the next person, so I don't have a problem with it. I like to watch football too, so I have not a problem with that. But what about October 31st? Why are we celebrating that? See, I never allowed them to do that. I said, Now, what you do when you get your own, when you have your own personality, when you're out there on your own, then you're making your own decisions and you got your own consequences. But now what we're here. As for me and my house, Joshua, as for me and my house, we're going to follow the Lord. Man, AC, that's too scriptural to live like that. Okay. We was having a conversation in the office with Anna. And I'm not saying that I'm successful, okay? But if you see if I'm in business, I'm just starting out in business, and if I come across a person that is a business person, and he's successful, don't you think it'd be profitable for me to learn as much as I can from that person, so I won't have to make the mistakes and fall in the same traps? It'd be very profitable for me to do that. Spiritually speaking, do the same thing. Look to your leaders. Look to the Word of God for Christ's sake. Really look to the Word of God. And see if those leaders are following what the Word of God says. And if they are, it's okay. He says, follow me. Paul said this carefully. Follow me as I follow the Lord. So there's nothing wrong with following a leader as long as you make sure that that leader is following the Lord. There's nothing wrong with that. But what that does to you, it makes you study the Word even more so, because you got to make sure that you're not following the wrong leader. Too many leaders in the land today. Too many bad leaders in the land today. And I hate to say it, but a lot of them are right behind one of these right here. Right behind it. All they want to do is get in your pockets. Well, they see, aren't they going to have to give an account? Yeah. They're going to have to give an account, but they shouldn't have to give it with your means. They're going to have to give their own account, but it shouldn't be with your means. You need to be wise. This has been many years ago. There was a man on TV that my wife and I followed. Are you saying don't watch those guys on TV? No, I'm not saying that. Not at all. Some of them are good. My wife and I followed this guy. We used to send him money. A lot. Every chance we had, we sent a check. If they say support this ministry in Africa, man, the checks were. And we did it for a long time. And then all of a sudden, one day, out of nowhere, God spoke to me. And I was not a pastor. I was not anything. a guy spoke to me and said, don't send that ministry, I'm not mentioning his name, don't send that ministry any more money. I was shocked. I went like, what? And then I told Rosemary, because she writes the checks at the house. You know, I'm the head of the house, but she's the neck. So she controls wherever the head turns, kind of, you know. So you notice your head cannot move that way unless the neck lets it go, right? So that's the reason she's the neck. Anyway, so I said, babe, we can't send that money there no more. Are you sure? Yep. You know, it was a year later. So we went a whole year in wonderment, like, why did we stop, you know? He was caught with prostitutes. And fell. Now he's back on TV. I'm sure he's repentant. I'm sure God, you know, he's not at the same level that he was back then. Nowhere near. Because, I mean, he had millions in audience. So, see, you can fall from grace. And there's a lot of it that goes on like that. Now, what money was he doing? Because he didn't have a job like mine. So what money was he using to do that? That's the reason the Lord spoke to me and said, don't send him. And I'm sure I wasn't the only one in the United States of America who God spoke to and said, don't do that no more. God can dry things up in a whisper. He can dry those wells up in a whisper. And all of a sudden it's like, what happened here? So you become, well, I'm not going to go there. Anyhow, wonderful counselor, mighty God, everlasting Father, Prince of Peace. His government in His peace will never end in our lives. In our lives. Right now we got wars and rumors of war. Right now we got all kinds of things going on. Jesus said, not yet. This is the beginning. This is the beginning of the end of time. So not yet. Don't even be concerned about it. That's the reason He wants us to be concerned about this right here. Our daily lives. It might be another 100 years. It might be another 1,000 years. Or it can be this afternoon. No man knows the place or the time. Jesus said, not even I know the place or the time. Hello. But Jesus says, God, yeah, but the Father, because He was in the flesh, that God did not reveal that to Him. No flesh would ever glory in His sight, not even Jesus. He was glorified by the Father. Jesus did not glorify Himself. And the glory you gave me, Father, I give to them. See, Jesus didn't have any glory on His own. Wow, what are you saying? Are you talking about Jesus? Of course not. He is my Savior. What I'm saying is that everything comes from God. Even Jesus came from God. In the beginning. Everything comes from God. His government and His peace will never end. Listen to what He'll do in your life. He will rule with fairness and justice from the throne of His ancestor David. Now, if you really want to know what this scripture means, this passage right here, you need to go back to David's life. That's really what you need to do. Instead of just reading the scripture and say, well, David was a good guy. No, David wasn't always a good guy. But you need to read the story of David. I read it many times, and I still love to read it again and again and again. Because some of these Psalms that we talk about came from David. Psalm 91, from David. But this is why. It's not because of that. It says, the passionate commitment of the Lord. What? The passionate commitment of the Lord of heaven's armies will make this happen. Man is not going to do it. A new president is not going to make anything any better. A new vaccine is not going to make anything any better. I'm glad it's here. And I'm glad that the elderly are being taken care of and those that have that need. I'm glad. I'm very happy for that. Don't think He throws everything under the bus. No, I do not. What I'm saying is that I don't put my hopes in none of that stuff. If it works great, great. It's like making an investment. If an investment turns out to be good, good. But you're investing with the knowledge that it can go bad. Oh, I don't want it to go bad. Well, that's too bad for you because that's the reason you're investing. It might go good or it might go bad. And when it goes bad, it's bad. Sorry. Then you get mad at the guy who talked you into investing or the gal that talked you into investing. No, you chose to strike the check. You could have said, no, I don't feel it. Oh, but it's good. No, I don't feel it. I'm not doing it. You can choose to do that. But see, what happens to us because we're in the flesh, the lure of easy money gets us. They make you all these grand promises. I remember when something started sweeping through here, not too long ago, when we first started the church. Oh, if you get into this club right here, you can buy everything, and then you get other people. It was like a pyramid thing. You all remember that? And a lot of people fell away from each other because you won't join me. You will not participate with me. All this, where's your Christian brotherly love? It's because I had a guy call me, a good friend of mine. And we're still friends because of what I told him. We're still very good friends because of what I told him. I told him, I said, look, Brian, I said, I think it was a $700 initial fee or something like that. I said, if you want me to strike you a check for $700 so we can remain friends, I said, I'll do it. I said, I love you that much. I told him that. I said, I love you that much. I'll give you a check for $700 so you can continue on this thing right here. I said, but believe me, I said, I don't trust it, I don't believe it, and I don't think it's of God. And when I told him that, he said, no, you don't have to do that, man. I said, okay. So we're still good friends to this day because of that. But some of the others, they just like, I can't believe, well. So see, and all it was is a lure, because I heard the promises. You do this, and in no time flat, you never have to go to work. The money be rolling in. Listen, that's so stupid. Warren Buffett's still working. He's in his 80s, and he's still working. Come on, people. Do we still, is that not childlike mentality? I have a problem with lazy people. My wife will tell you. I am not a lazy person. And when I know somebody's lazy, a part of me says, I can't give you all my all. I'm sorry, I can't give you all my all. I have a problem with it. I make myself goals. Yeah, even to this day. They may not be grand goals, but they're goals. I had a simple goal this year, and I'm going to accomplish it. I want to make sure that my basement that had been filthy for I don't know how many years is completely clean. See, it's not a big goal. And I want to make sure my barn that is completely filthy, hadn't been cleaned in I don't know how many years, is completely clean. Those two things I wanted to achieve, right? The basement's done. I've done most of the barn. I got about another day's work, and my barn is completely done. I'll be able to accomplish that before the end of the year. I could have sat and watched TV and asked Rosemary to give me some more cheese and crackers. I could have done that. She would have done it. Why do you do this to yourself? Don't your knees hurt? Doesn't your shoulder hurt? Yep. I'm just not lazy. I just can't stand it. Ask Rosemary what time I wake up in the morning. No alarm clock. Between 5:30, 6 o'clock, I'm up. And I sit there and I pray. If she's still asleep, and I can tell, if she's still asleep, I try not to bother her, so I just pray quietly. But let me tell you, by 6 o'clock, 6:15, I got to jump out of there. I don't care who's asleep, So I have a problem with people who are just, all of a sudden, they say, this caught up with me. How do things not? I don't know. Listen, we need to, we're going into the new year. And Harold and I have been talking about something that he wants to do. Something that he wants to accomplish. And I've been praying for my brother to get it accomplished. And I'm believing with him that he will get it accomplished. Is it going to take effort? Yeah. It's going to take effort. Sometimes we can shy away from the effort that it's going to take us if we want to get to the place we got to go. The same thing spiritually, people. I'm not saying this just to fill the air here. The same thing spiritually. Sometimes I want to know more about God. Let me give you a tip. Right here. This is your tip. Read more. Study more. Don't be in a rush. Do not be in a rush to read through this. And you're going to hear a lot of people read your Bible in a year. Don't fall for that. Read Psalm 91 for a year. How's that? I'm not even asking for the whole Bible. Read Psalm 91 for a year. See how much good that'll do you. It will do you a bunch of good. This thing about if you read the Bible in a year and you didn't get nothing out of it, what good is it? Are you think you're going to go up to God and say, hey, I read the Bible in a year? And God going to say, oh, yeah, come on in. You got it down. You have nothing down. Don't do that. I'd rather you read slowly. You heard me say this many, 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 many times. Those of you who've been here. I'd rather you read slowly. It's like eating a good meal. Eat it slowly. Digest it good so it'll be good to you. If I rush through here, I have read the Bible in a year. And I'm finding out new stuff now. See, a lot of people, well, I read it in a year. I don't have to read the Bible no more. I've been reading the Bible for almost 40 years. And I'm still reading the Bible. I need a new one because this was all marked out and falling apart. But look at the outside. What do you think? That gets beat up. I want you all to make some goals, spiritual goals. Now you can make some goals of the natural, you want to see your barn clean, you want to see your basement looking good, you want to clean all your baseboards, whatever you want to do. That's okay. But I challenge you to give yourself some spiritual goals. Well, AC, how do I do that? You can say to yourself, I want to know more about God. I want to read X amount a day. I want to pray X amount a day. Whatever God calls you to do, because God's going to call different people. He calls me to read a lot more than He calls me to pray a lot of times. When needs come up, He calls me to pray a lot. But I found out one thing. The more I read, the more I pray. It kind of goes together. You can't help it. The more you read, the more you pray, because the more need you see to pray. So I want you all to give yourself some goals for this year coming up. And don't wait till I'm going to wait till January 1st. Don't do that. Everybody's going to be going to the gym January 1st, because after all these holidays and everybody been stuffing their faces, they decide we need to go on a diet. Because summertime's around the corner. And in February, they all forgot about the gym. It happens every time. Every year, those gyms can't wait till January the 1st. They can't wait. They'll all be greeting you with smiling faces. Sign up. Because they know it's just temporary. How about doing something different this year? How about drawing from the Spirit, from the well of God? How about doing that this year? And you don't have to wait till January 1st to start. You can eat your big meal and continue to draw from God. You don't have to feel guilty about drawing from God. Well, I ate too much. Well, God's never going to tell you you read too much. God's never going to tell you you prayed too much. God for sure is never going to tell you you love too much. For sure, He's never going to tell you that. Keep loving each other, people. Wade, come on up. I'm going to call it a day so everybody can have them. The Christmas festivities coming up. We will be